We're going to talk about some of the things we wish we had known when we moved back to the area. If you've ever heard that saying, don't air your dirty laundry in public, well, guess what? That's what we're about to do when it comes to living in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Hi, this is Suzanne and Ryan, and we are a real estate team proudly serving the Western North Carolina and upstate of South Carolina, and everything in between from Asheville to Greenville.
We've helped buyers relocate from all over the country to our scenic and friendly towns, and we hope to help you next. So one of the things that I think we would have liked to know before we relocated back to the area was just the composition of neighborhoods in the area.
If you're thinking of neighborhoods and communities that are what they have in Atlanta, Georgia, or maybe some of those neighborhoods in Florida, that's not really what we have here in Hendersonville. Our neighborhoods, for the most part, are older established neighborhoods, and even those that maybe are limited to about 100 or 50 homes or so. They're kind of smaller pockets of homes.
Because they're older established neighborhoods, that means a couple of things. Number one is that you're probably going to look to do some renovations when you move in, because you'll want to do some updating. And the other thing is that they're not going to be really huge on amenities. So you're not going to have 5 pools and a spa and a workout room and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of our communities don't have any amenities. The upside of that is that there are other ways to get that. There's obviously multiple gyms with all of that kind of fitness activity that you want to find. There's also clubs and racquetball clubs and things of that nature that you can find in the area. And there's also community pools or pools that you can join for a membership that are around. So you can find those things. It just won't be necessarily in the neighborhood that you're living in.
There are a few neighborhoods that have those amenities, but I would say by far and wide, the majority do not have those amenities.
And then the other kind of neighborhood that we don't have in this area that you may be looking for is a 55 plus community that's similar to like the scale and scope of a Villages located in Florida, or even if you're familiar with the Del Webb communities, there's just not any immediately near us. Now, our building a Del Webb community across the border in Greenville, South Carolina, only about an hour away, so that is an option if you're looking for that specific community. That's not to say that we don't have any 55 plus communities. There are some. It's just not going to be to the size and the amenity level of those other neighborhoods that we mentioned. Now let's talk about the style of homes that you'll find in the area. So there's just some home styles that you're not going to find in Hendersonville, or at least not in an abundance. So you're not going to find 50 options of a Victorian style home. They're just not around here. If you're looking for a super large, super historic home, you might find a few options, but you're not going to find, again, a lot. Yeah. The thing that we do have in abundance here that they really loved in 1960 and 1970s is a brick ranch style home.
Solid home.
So if that's your jam, we've got you covered. If you're looking for a colonial, they're around as well, or multi-story, we have those. But again, it's probably not as common as the brick ranch, which is probably the most ubiquitous kind of style of home that we have in the Hendersonville area here.
Just because of our landscape here, I would say that most homes are either built on a basement or a crawl space. Very few, unless they're maybe the super new construction, like tract homes, we don't really have many homes that are on slabs at all here. So I would say expect to have a crawl space or a basement.
There's a good reason that most of our construction is not on a concrete slab, and it's because of our topography. Mm-hmm. We don't have a lot of naturally flat land, so from a development cost perspective, you're probably going to be on a basement or more commonly a crawl space. I think most people are familiar with what a basement is, but may not have heard the term crawl space. So that is literally an opening underneath the home. So there'll be these piers that are dug and usually filled with concrete, and that is what supports the weight of the home from underneath. And there's probably anywhere from this much room to, a cathedral height, depending on the land. It's called crawl space because typically it's not going to be that cathedral height. It's going to be something that you can't stand up fully underneath the home, but it's how you access anything from the structure that's underpinning it. And usually the surround of it is going to be some kind of brick, concrete, some kind of foundation. The biggest thing to be aware of when it comes to both basements and crawl spaces, and because of the way our land slopes in our area, is that it's not uncommon to see dehumidifiers running in either one of those spaces, really, to draw the humidity out of the air. That protects the longevity of the home and the structure of the home. The other thing that we run into commonly, and it's probably the number one thing that we find on home inspections, is the fact that there might be some level of moisture intrusion. The good news is there's many ways to handle it depending on what the particular situation is and the severity of that.
Another thing to know about Henderson County, according to the latest census, is that a third of the population is over the age of 65.
So you may find that it's a little slower pace of life here. If you're used to putting the pedal to the metal and getting where you're going from point A to B very fast, you may have to recalibrate your expectations.
Tying into that would be there's also no, real late night dining past 9 or 10 p.m. at night. There's maybe only a couple of bars that stay open past midnight.
Yeah, if you're a night out, you're going to have one or two places to go,
Yeah.
unless you're willing to drive to Asheville or Greenville, South Carolina. If you're coming from a big city or a metro area, there are a few ugly truths that you need to be aware of. One is that trash pickup is not always included. You're probably used to having that paid for with your city taxes, and they just come every week and get your trash. But here, you may have to contract for that, and there's several companies that offer that, usually around $40 a month. A few other things that are kind of city-related services that you may be used to that aren't a given here is the fact that you may not be on city water. You may have to use a well for your water source. Similarly, you may not be on the city sewer system. You may actually have to use an individual septic system on your property. And then last but not least, internet, particularly high-speed internet, is not ubiquitous. So there are 3 different providers of high-speed internet in our county. There's AT&T that has fiber that they're running to some areas. The more spread out option or more abundant option is usually Optimum, which is our local cable provider. And then in parts of the county, particularly around the Fletcher area, there's another cable provider on Charter Communications. So those are typically your 3 land-based high-speed internet options. And of course, if you want to live in a more rural area, the next best option for you is really Starlink satellite service.
So another thing to note about Hendersonville, I know everybody raves about our 4 seasons here and the mild climate. However, in the summer months, the humidity does get a little bit high. So I think air conditioning is something that if you're coming from those northern states where you're used to having your windows open at night and you can cool off and you can sleep comfortably, I would say maybe don't necessarily expect that here. I think air conditioning is going to keep you more comfortable for those peak summer months.
Yeah, it's really during the peak that you're going to want to run your air conditioning system, mainly because it draws out the humidity from the air.
It's like Dad always said, it's not the heat, it's the humidity that'll get you.
Very true. So what did you find most surprising about our ugly truths? Let us know in the comments, and as always, hit that subscribe button so you'll receive notifications of our future episodes.